Who were you submitting to there? Like, were you submitting to editors or writers or artists or everybody?
To editors mostly at that time. I submitted to every company, Fantagraphics to Marvel and DC to there's a lot of smaller press stuff at that time. So pretty much everybody and anybody. The next the next thing I had was there was a little local comic convention in the area in California, and there was a little blurb in there that an artist, a painter named Derek Gross, who he was the art director or kind of quasi art director for Valiant stuff. They were looking for artists, so I brought my stuff to this convention and I waited in the portfolio. I did portfolio lines too. I did all the, I would go down to San Diego with my portfolio, and I met Matt Clark and Larry Shepard, and we all became very good friends in those lines.
I bet if you're standing in them all day.
Yeah, we're going from one line to the next. I got to know a lot of guys. That it was really nice to see some of these guys then all of a sudden have work and whatnot. And also, in the early 90s, or mid 90s, there were there's this fantastic convention that was just pre-WonderCon. WonderCon was a convention up at this time in Oakland. It wasn't even hadn't even moved over to San Francisco yet.
Wow.
But just before that, there was the ProCon, which was 2 days of professionals giving lectures and talking about approach, and Gil Kane had an art class,
Wow.
So I went and I took that and just soaked up everything on a sponge. I met so many people at that, including Bill Kaplan, who was also the editor for Wildstorm at the time, and I became a friend of his. I got to meet Steve Rude and Mike Barron and a lot of guys that were already working, and I think it only just heightened my thirst. Because at the same time, I was also trying to create a film career for myself. Those were dual streams, and I was at that time, comic books and movies didn't work work together. So I was kind of splitting my energies to try and get into both of those things. But anyways, I met Derek Gross. I showed him my art, and I did some test pages for The Rocketeer. I didn't get the job, but then Derek had a line of books at this time. He did a big painted Batman book. It was a very beautiful thing, but he had a line of books of his own creations, and I did this thing called the Reiki Warriors of his, like 2 issues or something. And from that, I had enough of a body of work of
comics completed, and
comics completed, and you could
see your art style.
Mm-hmm. And so then I got from that I submitted my stuff to Tom Brevoort.
Was he at Marvel?
He was at Marvel at the time, and he gave me a little 8-pager for Midnight Suns, which was kind of their horror books. It would feature stories from Blade or Man Thing and stuff like that. And I did a little 8-page story with Blade in it, and then the next thing I got, because I had done some Thor pages because they were looking for new Thor artists. I think that's Dan Panosian got that job, but I got Wolverine from that. When oh man, now my brain's blanking. Jesus, Kubert Andy was doing Wolverine at the time.
Wow.
He was doing solid runs for a long time, but he needed a couple of times off, so I was the fill-in artist on the Wolverine stuff.
So that was your first experience with the X-Men, was doing the Wolverine book?
Right. Well, that was also that was my ingenue into the X department. Kelly Corvese was the editor for X Factor, and from that, he gave me X Factor, and I worked with Howard Mackey for about a year and a half.
Wow.
That was
So
my
you
first
became
run
the first regular artist. That was your first work as a regular artist
on X Factor.
on X Factor.
Yeah, and so then some of the other X books that I was doing also on top of it was X-Men Unlimiteds were some of the stuff, and this book called Charles Xavier and the Uncanny X-Men, which were retellings of the Kirby Lee stories, the first 10 issues, but done in modern style.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it actually was really fun doing the Juggernauts origin and things like that. So it got all my fanboy stuff and up and running. I did the Uncanny X-Men annual for '97. I think that was, to me, that was the crowning jewel because that was Uncanny X-Men. That's
the main title.
the main title.